and they've changed a lot since in the first hour and a half or so of today's hearing. Kinship caregivers are definitely the preferred setting for children unable to remain in the home of a parent. By the way, I'm Ryan Johnson, New York State Kinship Navigator, Chair of the Kincare Coalition. Thank you both for being here today. Just to kind of reflect a little bit on some of the testimony you heard from OCFS, from ACS, the number of children in kinship foster care is 7,201 children right now in kinship foster care in New York State. That leaves over 187,000 children not receiving the benefits of foster care, but who are being raised by kinship caregivers in New York State. 187,000 that are not getting the support of the foster care system.
Can I jump in?
Please.
Do they have access to supports and kinship supports?
So in New York State, we fund kinship supports at $2.5 million. So in New York City, there are only 3 targeted kinship case management programs for the entire city. They each receive $150,000 to run their support service. So sure, kinship caregivers have access to kinship supports. The Kinship Navigator, which covers the whole state and is my program, is funded at $320,500 by the state. We cover the entire state. There's 62 counties in New York State. So when we talk about using KIN as the first placement resource for children, that is proven to be a really good resource for kids when it comes to permanency and stability. But we have not invested in those families in providing stability, supportive services, funds to make sure that those kids can have access to child care, can have access to respite services. We talked about legal services at one point during this hearing. Parents are represented, children are represented, but guess who's not represented? Kinship caregivers. We are not sitting here asking kinship caregivers to step up and take children in ideal circumstances.
Yeah, Ryan, can I jump in? So earlier, and don't worry about the time because this is an important topic. We need to delve into this a little bit. Earlier, somebody, I think it was the Deputy Commissioner for OCFS, mentioned that there's a possibility to draw down money from Title IV-E. Would that be for KIN? No?
Not for KIN.
So you need a state fund, a new state fund to support KIN caregivers. You need that for lawyers. Tell me what the ideal world is, please.
I mean, the ideal world is that when kinship caregivers are approached about becoming caregivers of children, especially by the child welfare system, that not only are they given information about their custody rights and about their legal rights, which, by the way, you passed a bill a couple years ago indicating that when they are approached, they need to be given written information. Doesn't always happen, of course, but they need access to attorneys who know what they're talking about, too. So we need training for attorneys and we need attorneys for kinship caregivers, especially when they're involved in the child welfare system and they're being asked to go to family court. Because remember, even when this is happening, what we're here to talk about is hidden foster care, when this is happening under the table. But when you're asking a kinship caregiver to go to family court and CPS is saying, if you do that, then we'll back out of the case, well, you're pitting caregivers against biological parents. So this was a government intervention in this family's life, and now the government has said, we'll step away if you guys make this a family fight because you've told the kinship caregiver to go get custody. And you've expected the kinship caregiver to pay for legal representation otherwise. And I mean, I just got off the phone with a family yesterday who called and told me that, we can't find the parents. The parents dropped these kids off at our home and they are gone. But the court will not proceed with this hearing for custody if we can't serve the parents. So now these kids are just in limbo with no custody order, with no resources, because they can't get access to public assistance because they don't have access to the Social Security card or the birth certificate. These are the problems that kinship families face when they don't have legal representation.
Appreciate it.
So we're here to talk about hidden foster care, which...
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there, I promise.
Which is the practice of child protective services coming into a family's home and under duress or under threat, telling them that if you don't comply with having your child go live with a family member, we will initiate a removal. So we're bypassing court oversight of these facilitated placements, and they go untracked. They go without a permanency plan. They go without regulation. And from county to county, they vary on how they operate.
Can I jump in and
Please
tell you
do.
why I think that's happening?
Please do.
It's cheaper.
Absolutely.
And it's cheaper in the short term. In the long term, it's remarkably more expensive. And it's also hurting families. So what Ryan is talking about is the hidden foster care system. I'm just going to reiterate a little bit because we have a bill and we want everybody to understand this. This is a real issue. This is countrywide. This is not just a New York State issue. But there are circumstances, I'm agreeing with you just for 2 seconds, Ryan. It happens all the time where the CPS worker comes into a house and gives an ultimatum, and then the kid is separated from the parents, so right there, trauma. Then the kid goes to stay with a kin relative, and that kin relative gets no money, no assistance. They don't have rights for educational decisions, am I correct? And they don't have rights for medical decisions. So basically someone showing up and saying, hey, here's a brand new kid for you, good luck. And the reason why that's happening is because it's cheaper for the state than to provide the minimum basic services that we should, or supports for the original family, which should be the goal. So I believe that it is a huge problem. Can you speak to the magnitude, how often you think this is happening in New York State? And remember, this is hidden. We don't even track this yet. So please.
I mean, absolutely. So it's hidden. So every data point that's out there is an estimation of how many children. But for every 10 children, this is according to Child Trends, for every 10 children that enter foster care, another 7 were diverted in hidden foster care.
Okay. So that means for me, New York State has intervened in families, separated the families, not tracked them, no supports, have no idea, hey, mom, grandma, cousin, here's the kid, good luck. We don't care about it. It is remarkably bad policy. Now, the reason why nobody's been talking about it a lot is because the fix is going to cost tons of money. Doesn't matter. We're going to talk about this and have this conversation because I believe that, again, the state is traumatizing kids and families, separating them, and then putting kin caregivers who we should be supporting because they are heroic. I don't know what, well, there he is. He's patting himself on the arm. That was actually very funny. But they are heroic and they need our support. So this is a way for the state to save money when we wind up hurting families, hurting kids, and costing ourselves a huge amount of money in the long term. It's got to stop. So thank you for bringing this issue up.
And I want to just mention that not every kinship child needs to come into foster care. Not every kinship caregiver needs to be a certified kinship caregiver. But families who do request that support should have access to become a foster parent if they've been asked by child welfare to take a child who's been, traumatized already. And so I think, to your point about the expense of supporting kinship caregivers, in the written testimony we have a breakout of the estimated costs of foster care, right? We have just about 17,000 kids in foster care in New York State, just under, and we spend $1.3 billion.
Because foster care is the most expensive way to take care of kids.
But you can offer robust services through localized programs, through kinship navigator programs. And the Deputy Commissioner mentioned that Ohio is a part of the clearinghouse. That happened this week. So there is a kinship navigator program model that can draw down on a 50% reimbursement of anything the state spends. Ohio State spends $8 million on their kinship navigator program. We spend $2.5 million.
And your kinship navigator program is only in how many counties?
So we have a statewide kinship navigator, which is information and referral in all 62, and we have 14 localized kinship care case management programs around the state that cover 25 counties with services.
Which is clearly not enough. And you and I speak offline, and we nerd out a lot, so I'm going to move on.
Thank you.
To the crux. So please, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ryan. Ryan and his organization do a really good job with what they have, but there's a lot more that could be done. So we want to recognize that. My name is